Fastrax webinar. This is a weekly event we do every Friday at 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern, where we go over various topics of the Fastrax software. See a list of these events if you go to our website, goftx.com. Choose the FTx Lifeline button at the top of the page. This next page loads, scroll down just a bit and look for that Webinars button. Choose that. That will carry you to our Webinars page, where you can sign up for the newsletter that lets you know of upcoming Fastrax news and upcoming webinars, as well as sign up for the upcoming webinars by choosing that register button and view recordings for all the previous webinars. Today we're going to be going over something that is fairly basic. It's the POS actions. Now, before we get into what each action does, we're going to go over the permissions that are required to use said actions. So I'm in Director here. And once you've logged in, you go to the maintenance module and we go to permissions, and that's going to live under the employees area. Now, depending on your employee setup, you could have your employees pulling permissions from user groups. In this case, I've got my employees where they each have separate permissions. So I'm going to choose an employee and I'm going to choose that wrench, and then I'm going to look for the permissions area here. Now we can see that I'm not pulling permissions from a user group because I don't have a user group in this dropdown. If I was pulling a permission from the user group, then this whole area would not be visible. If you have any questions on permissions, I'd highly suggest you watch the permissions webinar. Now, for this particular topic, we're going to look at the POS permissions. This has to do with the POS actions. Now, every one of these permissions here is going to, if it's checked, if it's set to true, is going to unlock that action, which would mean that employee would have full access over everything in that module. So basically, each one of these is going to unlock that action, which contains a module. So of course, it's going to coincide with Director. Price book, if I have the price book permission, that's going to give me the option to basically open up my price book. I can make changes, I can delete, I can edit, I can do anything in that pricing module. If I have buy downs, I can do the same thing. I can open up, delete, edit buy downs. So make sure that the employees who have permissions have only what they're supposed to have. You don't want to have any more than what you need. So let's open up the point of sale here. Let's go over what these actions actually are. Okay, so to get to the actions, I'm going to choose the actions button here, and this carries me to the action screen. So of course, if I want to go back to the home screen, I can choose that return home. That's going to carry me right back to the home screen where I can then open the POS up, go back to actions, do messages, read announcements, clock in and clock out, do my to-do list, or log out. So price book. Whenever I choose price book, I'm going to have the option to see all the sub-modules contained within the price book module. So if I go to price book here, this is going to give me full access to do whatever I want in the price book. So if I want to add a new item, if I want to edit items, if I want to delete items, if I want to look items up, look at the cost and price, I can do so. I have full access. If we go to buy downs, I can do the same thing. I can create a new buy down, I can edit current buy downs, I can delete buy downs, I can do whatever. For vendor parts, same thing. If you have access to this, you can look vendor parts up, you can edit vendor parts, you can delete vendor parts, you can create new vendor parts. Now, as a note, when it comes to your cost and pricing, of course, if you're in the POS, it doesn't know about price book zones. So if you're in the point of sale, it's going to assume that the point of sale is being run at store level, not at corporate. So it only looks to price book zone 0. Price book zone 0 is always going to be the default, de facto, this is the price book zone number for the store. The store doesn't know any difference, even if the store is assigned price book zone 10 at corporate. And scan store. This is a utility that's mainly meant for onboarding and new clients. What this does is it will allow you to basically set your entire price book to inactive. That would mean that if you press this button, every item is going to be deactivated where it can't be sold, can't be ordered, can't be inventoried, can't have anything happen to it. Then you would do the scan store option. Now, whenever you do this, you use your barcode scanner or you can manually enter the UPC. And what it does is when you look an item up and it exists, it's going to let you change the description, the department, the cost, and the price. It will also change that active flag to active. So theoretically, the purpose of this would be to have a major price book. I have a big price book that has 50,000 items, and I have my store. There's no way my store carries 50,000 items. So I'm going to use this button to set all 50,000 of those items in my price book to inactive. I'm then going to scan my entire store, making sure that everything is scannable and having a cost and price. And when I'm done after scanning every single item that I carry, I can then use this button here, remove inactive items. And that will then delete any item in my price book that I did not scan in the scan store process. That will basically tidy that price book up to where I only carry what I actually have in the store. Any excess items is totally gone. All right, so the next module we're going to look at is going to be the inventory. Now, cycle counts, it's exactly like it is in Director. Whenever you go to the cycle counts module, you can start a new count, you can delete unfinished counts, you can print reports, view worksheets. It functions just like it does in Director. It essentially just gives you a touch-friendly version. Then there's the spot checks, just like it is in Director. You can start a new spot check, you can resume a new spot check, one that's already started, and you can view the completed spot checks. Manage definitions. This will be used for the cycle counts module. This allows you to create and edit cycle count definitions to utilize during your cycle counts. Now remember, spot checks do not utilize definitions. Only cycle counts do. Also, if you're in a corporate environment, you don't want to edit or create or delete cycle count definitions here in the point of sale. You want to make sure that those are created, changed, whatever at corporate, and then sent down to the store because you want corporate to always have the same data that the store has. No more, no less, nothing altered. Adjustments. It functions just like it does in Director. I can create a new adjustment, apply that adjustment. I can edit an unapplied adjustment, and I can close out of this module. Transfers functions just like it would in Director. I can create a new transfer. I can edit a transfer that is not applied, and then I can close out of this module. Now, with transfers, remember there's a difference in how transfers are actually done. If you're keying in a transfer at store level, remember that the same transfer has to be keyed in at corporate or at the next store. So if you're transferring from store 1 to store 2 and you are store 2, then store 1 needs to key in the exact same transfer. Whenever you apply and create a transfer at store 2, it's not going to affect inventory at store 1. The only way it will affect inventory at store 1 would be if corporate creates and applies that transfer. Pending transfers. This is going to be a part of the online pending transfers module. If you have any questions on how that works, I would suggest you watch the online pending transfers webinar. And then finally, there's worksheets. This will allow you to view any kind of items that have been returned on the point of sale that are flagged to go back to a vendor or a warehouse. If you have any questions on how this functions, I would suggest you watch the worksheets module for vendor returns. That's a separate webinar. Receiving, this is going to simply be invoices, and it's going to function just like it does in Director. You can create a new invoice, you can apply an invoice, you can edit invoices, and you can delete unapplied invoices. Reorder, there's going to be two options in here. There's going to be your working orders. That's going to be if corporate is sending down working orders to the store, as in orders that have a description. They're not purchase orders yet. This is where the store would actually do those working orders. They would process that order, they would put in their store numbers and then send that back to corporate. Then there's the orders module. This allows you to create a brand new purchase order. It allows you to send in a purchase order that's completed via EDI. It allows you to also convert those purchase orders to invoices. It's going to function just like it does in Director. Now, as a note, whenever it comes to building new orders, it does not allow you to build orders based on your ordering methods. It's always going to be a blank order. So you can't do replenishment, hybrid, days of inventory, that type of thing. If you're going to do those, you need to do those via Director. And then finally, there's the out of stock. And this lets you view the out of stock report by date range or by invoice and vendor. The next module under the actions is going to be reconciliation. And you have the option to do a shift reconciliation, a daily reconciliation. The daily is, of course, going to be consolidation of multiple shifts for a day, edit an unfinished daily reconciliation, or edit a finished daily reconciliation if you're a recon admin, and then manage the safe. If you have any questions on how the reconciliation process works, I'd highly suggest that you watch the reconciliation module webinar. And finally, management. This will be the option to see department groups, create department groups, edit department groups, delete department groups. The same thing for your POS flags, vendors, departments, employees, and very importantly, taxes. Now, employees, departments, vendors, POS flags, and department groups, those are all going to function just like the Director does. Taxes, though, this is something that has to be done at store level. Director can pull taxes and change taxes at a store, but they can't actually create new tax groups and create new tax rates. Just go into the taxes module and then choose the applicable option, creating a tax group or tax rate. If you have any questions on how this actually functions, I'd highly suggest that you watch the taxes webinar. And then there's the settings. And this allows you to actually go into the point of sale settings if you have permission, to go into the point of sale button editor and create, edit, change, delete buttons and panels, utilize the POS training mode, set applicable offline mode settings for secondary registers, view the POS version number, and then load panels from the database. So if there's panel changes that have been sent down from corporate or saved on a secondary register, you can pull those from the database by choosing this load panels button. For any questions on the offline mode or POS button editor, I'd highly suggest you watch their applicable webinars. And for any questions on what each setting does in the point of sale, there's a point of sale settings webinar as well. Now, finally, precautions for these actions would be if you're in a corporate environment. Basically, nobody should have access to price book, buy downs, vendor parts, because you'd never want those values being changed at store level. They do not get sent to corporate if it changes at store level. So under any circumstance, if you're in a corporate environment, should anybody have these actions enabled? Same with under management, your departments, your employees, your department groups, your POS flags, your vendors. Those should not have any availability to use at the store level, regardless of the user. Because if those ever get changed, just like I said, those values do not get changed and sent to corporate. It'll change it just locally at the store level. Then there's a mismatch, which can cause major issues. Now, receiving, inventory, and reorder, that's up to permissions. Those are perfectly fine to utilize at store level because that's their intent. Ideally, you're going to, at store level, you're going to utilize the point of sale application as much as possible. So these are perfectly acceptable and recommended to use in the store environment, in a corporate environment. All right, well, that covers everything I had today. Remember, to see a list of these events, go to our website, goftx.com. Choose that FTX Lifeline tab at the top of the page. Then look for that webinar button when you scroll down just a bit, and that'll carry to our webinar page that shows you a list of our previous webinars that you can watch the recording for, upcoming webinars that you can register for. email notification when they're coming out, as well as upcoming news links. If you have any questions on this webinar, let us know at websupport@fastraxpos.com. And if you have any suggestions for future topics, let us know at info@goftx.com. And have a great weekend.